The gentleman from the 20th District, Representative DeBolt.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this resolution today. And it's interesting because I've been on this floor for 22 years. And I've always wanted to speak on this resolution and never have. And before I get started, I just want to take a moment to thank those great young speakers that started our morning off, because you really reminded us that you give hope to us, and you remind us that apathy's not alive in our state and in our high schools, and that activism is still alive. So thank you very much for that. As we talk about this today, we heard a sermon, we heard some personal experiences, we heard some truths. I want to talk about a little 10-year-old kid who had a paper route in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, me. And my mom, who was the first EEO in a small southern town, home of the Jefferson Davis Memorial, who was fighting to segregate schools, and we moved there. And we came from the West, and the culture was sharply different for me. Couple parts of the story that are interesting. As soon as we arrived in town, and my mom accepted her position and they were appointed back then by the Carter administration. She was a Carter Democrat. And we went and she started going into the elections, and she started looking at the jobs and the hirings. And it wasn't soon after that they had a school board meeting, and they redistricted me to Booker T. Washington Elementary School. And there was a total different world than Holiday, which I had originally enrolled in. Booker T. Washington was, and I'm going to put it plainly, I was only one of 2 white children in the entire school. And they thought they were doing me some unfavor to my mom by sending me there. But they didn't. They taught me so much. And they put me here today because of that action. And my mom was one of these people that believed that Dr. King, and I'm going to use the quote that she talked about when I was a child. May I quote from Dr. King?
Please continue.
I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starlit midnight of racism and war that the daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become reality. I believed that the unarmed truth and unconditional love will be the final word. What that meant to our family and what that meant to me is that you can overcome anything with love. You can overcome any barrier, any injustice with peace. You know, we look at it today, it's so easy to get into your Facebook echo chamber and listen to only people that agree with you. And then you become more vitriolic and more hateful on all these echo chambers that exist today. That's not what we were shooting for. So when my mom explained to me one day why there was a cross burning in our front yard during the Jefferson Davis's birthday, I didn't understand. But she said, it's okay. These people are misguided, and they don't understand that love is the right thing. Okay. So I head out on my paper route one morning, and instead of going my normal route, I cut through the back. And in the South, in the old neighborhoods, there's a row of houses that are on the alley. And there was an older gentleman there, and his name was Shorty. And he was all of 5'3". He was missing his left arm, and he was missing his right eye. And he asked me one day, it was really hot. I had all 116 papers in my bag if I wanted a soda. So I sat on the deck and chatted with this gentleman. And we started to get to know each other. And for the next 4 years of my life, until he passed away, I would stop and see him. I brought him home for dinner once. The thing that was interesting about this man is he was so proud of how far our nation had come in 1975. Because he remembers getting pulled out of bed by some people called Midnight Riders and chopped his arm off. But he loved. He was so proud of a nation that allowed him to own a home. He was so proud of a nation that allowed him to vote. And he always told me, and they were some scary stories, folks, especially for a little kid. I did not know the world existed like this. And the one thing I learned from him was, be mindful of where you come from, but remember, you always have more to do. And it was funny to me, when I decided to run for office, my mom told me, you know, she was glad that all these experiences that I hated, because I hated that town, with all my fiber of all my being, I wanted to leave the South. And I wanted to come back to the West. In fact, when I had an opportunity, my parents loved me enough to let me leave in high school so I didn't have to be there anymore to watch what I thought were social injustices. But when I ran for office, my mom told me all those experiences that I had gathered are going to make me who I am today, and that I need to learn from that. And Dr. King was part of those experiences, because it was his speech that motivated her to go into that town and change the way it ran, no matter what, and to overcome it. And Mr. Speaker, you remember my mom would come to the legislature before she passed away about 5 years ago, and she would do her prayer, and she loved this place. And she believed so much in democracy, and so did Dr. King. And they believed so much in love and peace, but yet we seem so far away from where we were. But we know that we've accomplished a lot. So don't lose hope. Don't lose heart. Don't focus on the negative that we see every day. Focus on the positive. The upcoming leaders that I saw before me today give me the gift of freedom and the bravery to stand up and talk today. And also find patience for one another, and try to know that we all are in this together, and I know that we can have good resolution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.